Hey there, Layne. So I've got a couple decks here. One's an Oracle deck, one's a Tarot deck. I pulled out my White Cat's Tarot. I think it's funny because then when I pulled out this Oracle deck, it's the Animal Spirit Oracle. We've got another white cat on the bottom of the deck here with the tiger. And that was one of the images that kept coming through when I was kind of tapping into this energy, looking at where you might be going in this next chapter, what you might want to know, what kind of energies you might be embodying. Cats kept coming through, specifically in the way that, a cat can do almost nothing and be the most lovable creature that you've ever met, and hold no shame about what they do, what they don't do. They're kind of just out here living their life, and there's something about that that is very charming, very endearing. And what I was getting initially from kind of tapping into this energy is that you do a lot for the people around you, more than you give yourself credit for. And there's something here about realizing and appreciating how much you do, and in some cases even doing less. When we got Cheetah, there's another cat there. I like that we got both Turtle and Cheetah. We've got the fastest and the slowest, which kind of leans into that theme to me of acknowledging how much you do, how much you can do, but also learning how to slow that down. Not because it's bad to be doing a lot, not because going at full speed is wrong, but because there's different perspectives and different energies and different parts of yourself that you get to grow and learn with and tap into, within each type of energy. So I think that's kind of the theme of, I guess, this arc of the journey, so to speak, is that learning to slow down, noticing your own energy, enjoying and feeling content in that, and I think also noticing how other people respond to that shift and those different versions of yourself. But we'll start at the beginning, because every hero's journey starts with a inciting event or a call to action, and I kind of want to know what that might be in this instance. Alright, we've got the Nine of Cups, the Seven of Pentacles, and the Seven of Cups. So I think there's a sense here of almost comparing and contrasting at least two different situations with that Seven of Cups. And I think in one of them, there's maybe a person, situation, energy that is very just content with you, that is very happy regardless of what you're doing. It's as long as you're happy, as long as you're showing up, there's this sense of contentment, there's this sense of mutual appreciation for that. And I think in the other energy, there's almost this sense of you keep putting in the work, you keep putting in the work, you keep doing what needs to be done, showing up in the best way, but it feels there's almost a sense of lack of completion, lack of satisfaction, the kind of feeling what you're doing is hard work, but it's not getting to where you want, versus a situation where you feel maybe you're just kind of sitting back and enjoying it and not necessarily putting in the work, but realizing that there's this appreciation or this fulfillment that comes from that energy. And I think there's something about that will help to kick off this understanding of, I think both of these parts of you that you have, the part where you're going at full speed with Cheetah, versus the part where, you're slowing down. Maybe you're even coming back into your shell a little bit. And just noticing the ways that people respond to that, because I think that there's almost a part of you there that wants to be developed, that has some gifts, some lessons, some guidance to kind of take you down. But after you sort of have these events happen, or maybe like connect them in your mind and sort of like come to this realization of like, oh, you know, in some cases I can put in all the effort, I can be, you know, running at cheetah speed and still be told, okay, you're not quite fast enough. And in some cases you can be going at the turtle pace and still have someone say, yeah, it's just great to hang out with you, great to spend that time with you. I appreciate the work that you put in. There's something here about learning to appreciate yourself and allow yourself to be appreciated even when you're doing less, especially when you're doing less. And I think in doing so, realizing how much you do even when you're not doing, you know, sort of like the energy and the impact that like your presence just brings, and how that is seen and appreciated by people. But as you go down this journey, one of the first questions that we ask in the archetypal hero's journey is, you know, where or who is like the mentor? Where do you look for inspiration, for guidance, for teaching, for, you know, whatever else? So I would like to know. We have the Ace of Pentacles, the Four of Wands, and the Star. So this feels like someone who sees and celebrates the little things, you know, because we have this Ace of Pentacles here, which is sort of like the beginning of the journey, the first, you know, step, the smallest offer, you know, the new little thing there. But there's something about, like, not just in relation to you, but like specifically people who recognize how those little things are meaningful. Those little things are like worth celebrating and worth appreciating. And someone who is willing to, you know, slow down and celebrate those things, like within themselves, within you. You know, it's again kind of back to that like cat energy, where the cat is happy to, you know, take a nap all day, then goes and catches a mouse and is quite proud of itself. And it's like, that's enough. That's enough. It doesn't have to be like, okay, did I catch more mice today than I did yesterday? Or, you know, did I catch as many mice as this cat? Which, you know, it's like a little goofy, but there's something here about someone who appreciates like themselves for the things that they do naturally, someone who appreciates you for the things that you do naturally, and kind of like looking at that energy and how that's embodied as far as all of the input-output goes. But past that, in this journey, I think that there will also be energies that are helpful to you, even if it's not necessarily in a, you know, guide or mentor type of way. And so I want to know what those are. All right, we've got the Four of Pentacles, the Queen of Wands, and Temperance kind of on its side. So this is kind of giving me someone who, you know, may sometimes struggle with burning themselves out a little bit. You know, they may feel like a little bit overwhelmed, or a little bit like sometimes they struggle to like maintain balance or like maintain that control. Like, this doesn't feel like someone who's like, you know, majorly unstable with that Four of Pentacles, but it is someone who sometimes like holds on very tightly to their stability. You know, maybe someone who always like has this feeling of, I'm not giving enough or I'm not doing enough. And I think that like the allyship there is kind of the mutual understanding and support that like you can give one another, as far as confirming and affirming that it's like what you're doing is enough, and I appreciate you just for being in my life, and I enjoy, you know, what you do, and I enjoy and appreciate that for what it is, you know, because I think that this kind of gives me the energy of someone who has a lot of energy, like has a lot of passion and desire to share that, but sometimes feels overwhelmed with, it's like, okay, am I covering all my bases? Do I have enough here? Do I, you know, and that sort of can be destabilizing to this person. And I think that, like, there's something about a mutual sense of, like, being in one another's presence that allows both of you to relax a little bit, and let go of that fear of what should I be doing or what more could I be doing, and kind of like support one another in appreciating the presence and appreciating the present that your presence provides, to one another in this journey. Giving me a pun now. I'm just saying it's cat cathartic, like cathartic. It's so bad. I guess now, sorry. We're gonna look at what the primary opposition to you will be in this journey, and in some cases that is a, you know, actual antagonistic figure, like the villain of the story. But in some cases, a lot of cases, it can be that, you know, voice in the back of our head, or, you know, the experiences that we've had previously, or just sort of an underlying pressure that exists, you know, through society, through work, whatever else. But I would like to know, in this case, what is Layne's primary opposition to achieving this goal? Operator reversed. We have Justice, Nine of Swords reversed, and Knight of Swords. You know, this feels like there's some, like, almost a sense here of pushing oneself to act, because it's like, okay, that will help my anxiety about not doing something, or this will alleviate someone else's anxiety, or, you know, and there's something with Justice here about, like, that being kind of, like, technically true, which is, you know, where it gets, like, a little bit more difficult. Like, this isn't a sense of, oh, you know, there's no point to taking action. It's like, no, you know, there are benefits, you know, potentially the alleviation of your worries, your stress, your anxiety, someone else's, you know, and that part of it is true. But I think that there's, like, something more here about, you know, considering, almost like considering the cause and effect and the cost in those instances. Yeah, we've got the Two of Pentacles on the bottom. Like, this sense of, are you always in this state in certain situations or mindsets of feeling like, okay, if I just did this, well, if it was just a little more, or, you know, I would just, you know, and this sense of kind of like pushing the envelope with yourself as far as, like, feeling like, you know, to be enough to balance things out with, you know, someone, whether that is someone else or yourself, that, you know, there's just one more thing you could do. There's just one more. And it's like the things that, you know, you're thinking about doing, taking action on with that Knight of Swords, it's like they're not bad things, you know. I think that what you are striving for is something that is ultimately rooted in truth. It's something that, again, it's not wrong, but I also think that there's this sense of, what is the driving force? Is it, you know, the alleviation of anxiety, or, overthinking, or, like those thoughts or words that keep you up worrying about them, overthinking them? Or is it like this sense of really deeply enjoying what you're doing and wanting to do it? It's not bad to be taking action for either reason, but there is something here about, I think, a sticking point being like that motivation, and kind of like looking again at those situations. It's like, in what situations does it feel like, okay, if there was just like a little bit more that I could do, or oh, if I could just, I'm almost enough, or almost the kind of a thing, versus it is enough. It is enough, and you can kind of like relax into that instead of feeling driven by the underlying need to make things okay, in every capacity. There's something here where, they're telling me that it's like things will be balanced, things will be made right, and part of like the process of coming to trust spirit, intuition, intuitive guidance is allowing for spirit to sometimes be the one who makes the situation right, like not taking all of that weight onto you, as far as, okay, I have to figure this out, I have to do this. It's good to have a plan, it's good to be productive, but it's not always your responsibility. I think sometimes, it's like spirit wants you to have your responsibility be to accept the uncertainty, to accept the feeling of being present in the uncertainty, even when that generates some anxiety, and to release the burden of total responsibility for rectifying any kind of uncertainty, anxious energy, anything like that. It's kind of like, you let people feel what they feel, you let people do what they do, and notice, I think, how things kind of like balance themselves out. There may be some people that dislike that choice, but I think that there's also this sense of like, this is why you've been also kind of given some other allies, other instances where you can see like how people appreciate you showing up, in ways that don't burn you out, appreciate you showing up, just taking responsibility for your own energy and not necessarily needing to like balance out the whole situation. I think like that's going to be kind of a key thing here, because like they're wanting me to like continually reiterate that it's like the things that you are doing or wanting to do are not like wrong. They're not like based in any misguided intention or anything. It's just like, there's more to it. And, I think that there's a sense of like you potentially benefiting from or appreciating some of the things that come about from stepping into that energy that is more relaxed and more fluid and more fun and more present, rather than pushing yourself, to that point where you get burned out. Because the thing that, I'm being drawn back to like this cheetah card, that we have kind of guiding the energy of the reading as a whole, where like cheetahs are insanely fast sprinters, but they're short distance runners. It's like they have these like bursts where they sprint and then they need time to rest. And it's like if you're gonna do sprints, there's nothing wrong with that. Based on this, I think that you can do quite good at that. But it's like the energy expenditure, like the toll of that is different than if you're moving at like this turtle pace, where the turtle is not out here doing sprints and then needing recovery time. And you can do it either way. I think it's just a matter of acknowledging what it is you're doing, giving yourself credit for that, rather than being in that position of it's not enough, or just a little more, just a little more, just a little more. You can only sprint for so long. So, having addressed the primary opposition, what I want to look at is digging more specifically into like skills, gifts, things that will benefit you in addressing this. Page of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, Eight of Pentacles. You know, there's something here about like being able to shift perspective. You know, and it kind of reminds me of what was coming out with this like turtle and cheetah up front, where it's like you have the capacity to kind of take it both ways. You know, because we have this Queen of Pentacles here, who's very regal, very nurturing, you know, obviously knows how to take care of herself, take care of the people around her, take care of her home. And then we have this Page of Pentacles, and he's dressed kind of like a funny little jester dude. He's just vibing, he's chilling, he's having a good time. And I think that there's something here about like you having the ability to like take on multiple perspectives. Like, you know, you can kind of have the fun, the laughter, the less heavy, the less like, you know, needing to take responsibility for the kingdom type of vibe. And you also have like this capacity to be, you know, very practical, like very much taking care of yourself, the people around you, keeping it all together. And with this like Eight of Pentacles here, it's like telling me that you have skill in both of these. Like you have skill in, you know, making people, putting people at ease, including yourself, from a variety of different perspectives. Like you can be the person who is taking care of everyone, but you can also kind of be like, you know, the fun and silly little guy here. And there's something here about like valuing both of those skill sets, you know, and embracing both of those. Like, you know, one is not better or worse. It's like they just have like different applications, different time and place. And I think like having kind of like that awareness of yourself and your versatility and your skills and like appreciation for that, I think is going to be a huge amount of skill, because it's almost like, it's like you develop a skill in existing one way, you develop a skill in existing in another way, and then you develop a skill in like learning how to switch between them and understanding almost like how much energy each of those takes, and the ways that, you know, each of the various ways that you show up, like, you know, fills you, or, you know, maybe in some cases drains you. And there's like a balance, and there's like a sense of, I think, perspective in realizing that regardless of how you're showing up, like, you're still doing the work. Because, like, the work here is being yourself, it's sustaining yourself, it's investing in the things that, you know, you would like. And I think that they're also, like, telling me that there are different, like, interests, hobbies, skills that, you know, are maybe associated with, like, different parts of you. And, you know, when you're in kind of the energy of, you know, being a little bit more carefree, a little bit more playful, it's like there are different skills or interests that you can kind of like tap into more fully, versus when you're, you know, in this state that's sort of more practical, more nurturing, more taking like more responsibility for yourself, the people around you, your environment. And I think that there's something here about this journey. Like, yeah, it is intended to, you know, kind of teach you about yourself, you know, help you to become more engaged and, you know, feel like that deeper sense of purpose and connection. But I think that there's also like some specific skills, specific passions that I think pursuing and acknowledging are going to be important to you, going to be sustaining to you in one way or the other, as you move forward. And so there's something here about, you know, not discounting any side or part of you, because they're all very essential in terms of building this overall picture of happiness and fulfillment in your life. Which sort of like leads me to, you know, our last point, which is the end of like this arc of the journey, you know, and you've faced the opposition and come out victorious, as you will. What's on the other side? You know, what's waiting there? Queen of Cups reversed. Interesting. The Tower. Even more so. The Moon. And Death. I think that, like, this is about, like, transforming things that fell apart. Things that felt difficult. Maybe people that were unreasonable or difficult. Things that maybe you didn't even realize were, you know, generating some anxiety. There is this sense of big shifts that kind of happen often like on a subconscious level, that kind of like break down anything that is not serving like your emotional fulfillment. It's like this comes out first and foremost, followed by the Tower. It's being like, okay, anything that is like kind of putting you in this state of feeling emotionally blocked or emotionally unfulfilled, or, you know, people who are very much like draining on those emotions, like even on a more subconscious level with the Moon, you know, there's almost something there about like even without you consciously putting in the effort, like that shifts, that changes, and that internal landscape, you know, starts to shift and resolve itself in a way that I think is a lot more balanced for you, that allows you to kind of eliminate some of those sources of exhaustion or disconnection or anxiety, and I think more fully step into yourself, more fully embrace yourself, more fully embody yourself. And that I think is where this is going. I think that in some cases it may catch you a little bit off guard, but I don't think that it will be in a bad way. You know, we got the King of Pentacles there. I think it is about, I'm hearing like clearing the slate so that you can create the picture that you want to create, that you want to see, allowing for the energy to move, to shift, to transform, to be reclaimed and understood through a more accurate perspective, in a more sustainable way. And, you know, I think that there may be specific connections to that with this like Queen of Cups in reverse that are or have been, you know, not the most emotionally sustainable or healthy. It's like I'm like about to say a bunch of things, and then it's like they're like, So I guess I'll leave it at that. Reframing the emotional landscape to be more sustainable and healthy, and removing the blockages, especially emotionally speaking, to connecting with self and others in the way that you would like. That's about all as far as, you know, the next arc of the journey, so to speak. But I think that no story would be complete without a plot twist. So, pull out another deck and get you a little plot twist going on here. See what Layne doesn't see coming. What might show up 5 of Swords, 3 of Cups, 4 of Pentacles. I feel like there's one more. 6 of Cups. This feels almost like something or someone that was very difficult in the past coming back around, either like a specific person with that 5 of Swords, you know, maybe not having the most healthy of tendencies, especially when it comes to conflict. Definitely some ego, some all or nothing there. Or just like a person or situation that really resembles like a pattern that you've faced before. And I think that there's something here with that, like 3 of Cups, 4 of Pentacles in the middle that feels like this time it doesn't break you down in the way that it did before. It's like this time you have an understanding of like your sources of support, your stability. And there's something here about like seeing how much you've grown like through that. There's something here about, you know, seeing that, you know, this situation, this pattern, this energy that in the past would have been, or maybe was like very destructive, you know, it's still not healthy. It's still, you know, probably not something that you're looking for in your life, but it's something that doesn't get to you the way that it used to. It doesn't get to you the way that it used to. And I think that you will be able to kind of like look at yourself, look at your stability that you've built, like the foundation there, and the sources of support that you have, and like through that, like understand why. And I think like that is intended not to undermine any of your progress, because I don't think that it will, but to like show you how much you have grown and how you've learned, I think, to rely on the people and energies and situations that are good for you, and like almost like seeing in that instance how potent that kind of support is, how potent like that kind of stability and balance is in seeing you through whatever kind of comes back around. And I think like that's going to be a little bit of like a confidence boost for you, both in terms of what you're doing and, you know, the support that you're seeking and the way that that happens. So sorry for spoiling the surprise, but hopefully that helps. This is actually my 200th reading since starting TikTok. I didn't really keep track of them before then, because a lot of it was like in person on the fly, and I've been doing this for, you know, like half a decade. But I have been since I started posting here, and you are officially reading number 200. So congratulations there, and hopefully this helps. Best of luck to you on your next leg of your journey. I think it's going to go real well.